Hey crafty friends, it's Rick. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to make a fun card using the color cube as inspiration. And let's get started. This is the color cube. If you have not seen it, it is by Sarah Renee Clark. It is filled with color palette inspiration. We have your inspirational image along with the colors that are in that image that work together. You have your tint and tones and the regular shade. We're going to randomly pick a video. We're going to go to Google and we put in 500 and we're going to randomly pick our color selection, which was number 45. We're also going to use the Mindful Magnolia Stamp Set from the Rabbit Hole Design. This is our inspirational photo. Colors on this are sage, peach, chocolate, auburn, and scarlet, and it has your tints and tones and the hex codes. So to do our coloring, we are going to use our Ohuhu markers, and I have already picked out my colors that match. I have went through and used my swatch book to create my colors. I've already stamped out the images. I have all my markers over in that little tray to the side. And we are going to color our image. We're going to start with our leaves and we're going to use sage. And the colors I picked for that was GY173, G220, and G240. And these are, again, we're using our Ohuhu markers, which could be a little controversial for some people. And we'll get more into that in a minute. But I'm going to start off by putting in my darkest shade where I want my darks to be. And then I'm going to blend that out with my medium tones. And that's G220. And then I'm going to blend that out with my lightest tone, which is GY173, to get my sage color on the color palette. All right, so back to the controversy with Ohuhu markers. Some creators do not like them because they think that they are scamming people or don't know how they can make markers so cheap. Well, I say use what you can afford and get what you like. I love my Ohuhu markers. I think they're fabulous. And I got mine on sale during Black Friday, the week of Black Friday, and I paid like $100 and something for 320 markers. You can't beat it. So just check out for sales. Use what you like. Don't listen to everybody else. My opinion is they're fabulous. I rank them over Copic. I like them. They're refillable. They have replaceable nibs. I love them. Now, there are some problems with the people knowing what colors to use. That's why I use my swatch book to figure it out. But I did talk to Ohuhu, and they said that they are aware of the issue, and the number system changed because they were someone else. They produced some more markers before. They were originally doing it the same way as Copic with the color family and value and all that. They had some that were out of range, so they aren't aware of that, and they're going to fix that problem. So there's that. But now back to the card. All right, so we're going to continue coloring in our leaves with our light, medium, and dark, and just blend those out. This is the way I color leaves. You can do them the way you want. There's 50 to 100 different ways to color leaves and flowers, so there's that. But really what we're talking about today is the color palette. You want to pick color. So you want to pick color palette, a color palette that works together, and the color cube is what helps you do that. Because they are, all the colors in this cube have already been selected. They know they work well together. Sarah Renee Clark did a fabulous job putting these together. She's a colorist. And, excuse me, I have a cold. It helps you pick wonderful palettes that you know work together. So that's why we're using the color cube, and I decided to do a random selection to do that because I thought it would be fun for everybody. Because color changes any image. So you want to be aware of what colors you're using and what feel you're wanting. So the color cube's a great way to do that. And it helps you not have to think about everything you're doing. Now right here, you will see I did not stamp that very well. You'll see how I fix that at the end. And I also have, if you stick around to the end, I have more information about an upcoming thing that you may be interested in, especially if you're like to color. So stick out around to the end and I'll tell you more about that. All right, so we're going to finish coloring our leaves here. We have a couple more. I did end up skipping one, not realizing it, but everything's going well here. I don't know about y'all. The New Year's kicked off. We are just working our little tails off. I did have jury duty the other day. That's why this video didn't go up on Monday like it was supposed to. I didn't get selected. It was funny. But anyway, that's another story at another time. We're going to finish coloring our card up. And again, I did stamp this on Express It cardstock because we were doing alcohol marker blending. You can use whatever marker-friendly paper you like. I just chose the Express It because it was right there beside me when I stamped. So that's why I picked it. And I will tell you that the colors look different on Express It cardstock than they do on Nina or Hammermill. So that's something to be aware of. All right, so our next color is peach. Excuse me. So for that, I picked YR240 as my highlight, YR250 as my midtone, and YR260 as my shadow. They do have names. I just don't know them all. So I'm going to start in with my shadows. I'm going to color some of the magnolias, the peach color, and then I'm going to color some of them the scarlet color. And it's funny because I didn't even know this until after I had done this video, but peach is the Pantone color of the year this year. I didn't know that. I thought it was funny. Peach Fizz, I think it's Peach Fizz is what it's called, is the Pantone color of the year for 2024. So just a fun little fact. So we're going to color that, and we're going to put in our darks. Anywhere that a petal overlaps another petal, you're going to have a shadow, so you're going to put that in, and then you're going to put in your dark or mid-tones. That's going to be most of your coloring, and then your highlight is the very last thing. Or you can also color where you do light to dark, and then back to light. I just chose to go dark to light. Sometimes I color the other way, sometimes I don't. You never know. It just depends on my mood. Especially if I've never colored an image before, I usually will go light to dark and then back. But since I have colored this a couple times, I kind of know the stamp set now. Excuse me. All right, so we're going to finish coloring our petals. And I did speed this video up. So this is not coloring in real time. Real time, it took me a little over an hour to color the whole image, but I did also do a lot of pre-stamping. I stamped and masked. The part we're working on right now is the main large image of the stamp set, and then the other things behind it, like that flower right there, and the some of the leaves are stamped, masked off, and stamped behind the big flowers, so that I had a nice full bouquet of magnolias, which are usually not my favorite flower, especially to paint because they're so hard. But coloring, I love to color them. They're super easy to color. And if you want to get the stamp set, there's a links below that is to the Rabbit Hole Design. They are an affiliate link, so I do earn a small commission from that sale. But there's no cost to you. It just helps fund the channel and keeps our videos free. So we are just adding in. Now the color palette, like I was saying before, colors can change the mood of a card. It really changes the look. It changes the feel. It changes the emotion because color is, people's emotions are tied to color. Excuse me. Like for example, you don't normally paint a kitchen yellow because yellow, for some reason, is psychologically towards anger. So sometimes people get angry when they have a yellow kitchen or a yellow room. I don't know. I think yellow's a nice, pretty bright color. But that's me. I like bright. So there's that. So just be aware of what you're coloring in certain colors because it can affect other people's moods. And it affects the way your cards look. But I like the color cube because I don't have to think about anything. I can just randomly pick a card, and I know everything's going to work well together. Now, As far as my Ohuhu markers, I absolutely adore these markers. I think they're fabulous. I love them. I think they color really well. Are they Copic quality? Not per se. The tips are not as durable as the Copics, but I have not had one fail me yet, like I have in other brush markers that I have owned. And some of you that know will know what I'm talking about. And I'm not going to name any names. I'm not going to throw a company under the bus. But just because it's a cheap marker doesn't mean it's a really good one. Especially with brush markers. If they fray really good, they are probably too expensive to buy. So there's that. These are fabulous. I have had these for several months, and they have not frayed once, and I've used them several times. Just like my other budget-friendly markers like Art and Fly and Sanjoki. I love those too. My Spectrum Noirs, love them. Excuse me. Why? It never fails. I start coughing when I start doing a voiceover. Now, I have put a piece of cardstock underneath my coloring because it keeps it from soaking. I found that when I was coloring just on the glass mat, it soaked up too much with the Express cardstock, soaked back up into the paper. Now we're going to go to our Scarlet color, which is YR090 as the highlight, YR70 as my first midtone, YR5 as my other midtone, excuse me, and R2 as my shadow color. So we're going to color up the rest of our leaves, or rest of our petals on our other flowers. Just like this. We're going to start with our darkest color, fill in our next darkest color, and then our second midtone. And then we're going to put in our highlight. So yeah, that's what's going on with us. Nothing really major. No real good story time to share with y'all today. Besides, I did have jury duty. I got struck because apparently it was a DUI case. And one of the questions was, are you a drinker? Well, of course I'm not. So I'm not surprised I got struck off the jury. And it was sad because I kind of wanted to do it. I'm weird. I know. It's weird. Most people try to get out of jury duty, and I was excited hoping to get on jury duty. All right, so you can see right here with our color, and back to our card for a second, how beautiful that is a blend with those 4 colors. Sometimes I will do a 4-color blend, and sometimes I only do a 3-color blend. It kind of just depends on what works best together. And I thought that the 4-color worked good for this, but most of the other ones are all 3-color blends, and those worked best. So we're moving on to our next flower. I love how that scarlet turned out. But this, again, the color cube made it super easy because it had my dark. I could either pick the regular color in the middle, or the shadow, which is on the right-hand side, or the tint that's on the left. It gives you a wider range to pick from, especially so it allows you to use more of your supplies and make it easier on you. So we're going to color the rest of our little flowers here. I kind of dig in the whole scarlet and peach magnolias. I think they're kind of pretty. Let me know in the comments below if you like this color combination so far. So there's our flowers. All right, so we're going to keep coloring. And if you notice, I turn my paper. I find it easier to turn when I'm coloring. It lets me color towards me instead of away from me. I find I have better control that way, but you can do you, boo-boo. If it works better for you to color towards you, then by all means do that. Do what works best for you. I have to turn the paper so I can see how things are going. All right, so for that petal is way underneath the other petal, so I've made it a lot darker than the others. My only highlight is in the center of the flower. So I colored that with a center highlight. For this one, we're going to color it with our highlights on the ends because there's going to be more light hitting those ends of the flowers, which is why we chose to do the highlight on the very end of it, because the light would be hitting it more above the other flower. That is one of the big things also. But again, picking a color palette, I know I've said this over and over, is very different, but the Color Cube really helps with that. And I'm not affiliated with Sarah Renee Clark. I just loved her product, and I've been using it behind the scenes. And I am planning on a whole series, monthly series, of doing a random color palette of projects. So be on the watch for that. This is actually going to be the first video in that series. Some of them, they're not going to be all recorded. Some of them will be live. I am planning on going back to some live videos. I'm planning on Saturday evenings at 5. If I can figure out the new system that I've chose to do. So I got to figure that out first before I can get the lives done. Hopefully I'll have that done by Saturday. We will see. I just need to sit down and figure out how to do it. All right, so for that petal, we have a lot of it underneath the other petals, so it's going to be a lot more in shadow. So I used only the 3 colors that time. Same thing with this one on that back petal. I used the darkest the most, and then the midtones, and that was it. That was the RO70 on the back pedal of that bud is my highlight. For the front one, it's got a little more light hitting it, so I did add the YR090 in it. Now I noticed right here that petal is actually bigger than I thought it was, so I added in some more shadow back there behind it, so that petal on top of it looks like it's more dimensional. So that's something to be aware of when you're coloring. Look for what's laying on top of each other, what's laying underneath, because again, underneath is going to be a lot darker than shadow, because it's going to be more in the shadow. And if you really want a nice color blend or color look, that's how you're going to achieve it, especially with markers. Excuse me. All right, so we're going to keep coloring our magnolias here. I probably could have skipped over some of this for y'all, but I thought it was more beneficial for you to see how I was coloring it than it was to take it out. And it is a little longer video, but I hope you grabbed a cup of coffee and a snack and are enjoying the process. I'm sorry y'all are having to listen to me sniffle, but this is just a side effect of the COVID Christmas that we had. Yes, we had COVID during Christmas. So this is the side effect of that. Apparently, with this strand of COVID, you have all these strange sniffles and everything that nothing is going to help. So I get to sniffle and snuff for a little while. And sadly, I did not have it as bad as Charles did. He had it really bad. He had some severe headaches. We actually had to go to the emergency room on Christmas Eve with him, or Christmas Day with him. He was running 104 temp, and we couldn't get it down, so we ended up in the emergency room. And surprisingly, there was nobody else there. It was great. We were in and out in probably about an hour. And they sent him home with, "You have COVID," which meant I had COVID. So there was all that fun. So now Rick's dealing with the aftermath. So we're going to finish coloring up our flower. Back to our card. We're still on our scarlet color and doing our 4-color blend. And right there at the top, you notice that I put in the dark again because that petal was overlapping. And then I grabbed the wrong marker and I had to go back and add in some of the mid-tone. I don't know what I was thinking. So, but color is very important to our card making process anyway. But I feel it's like one of the major things that if you really want to improve your card making skill, choosing the right color palette really helps with that, because it allows you to express your feelings. It allows you to convey emotions for people. So if you were going to do this as a sympathy card, you probably wouldn't use as bright as colors as I'm using today. You'd probably use something a little bit more muted. If you were doing this as a birthday card, you could totally do this more in pinks and yellows and stuff like that to make it a lot brighter. But again, we're using a color cube, and this was the random selected color palette we're using, and I absolutely actually ended up loving it. I thought it was a beautiful color combination. It does give me some fall vibes, but I'm okay with that. It's winter. It's not going to be as bright as everything else like it would be in spring, so I thought it was a great choice. And I think if you use this palette on a different stamp set, it would be completely different. And I may have to do that. We might have to do that too. We'll see. All right, so we're going to finish up our petals here. And we're about to the point where I realize I forgot some leaves. So there's that. Yeah, sometimes I randomly jump around. I was coloring and just didn't realize. You never know. But let me know if you're interested in a series like this, where we do different color palettes on different projects and feature a different color palette each month. I am going to be featuring my Ohuhu markers more than anything, because I know a lot of people are struggling coming up with color combinations for that, and I am more than happy to help y'all with the ones I have figured out. And so that will be part of the video series, I'm sure. There's the rest of our leaves, our flowers. I did realize there was one down here. So we're going to continue coloring our last magnolia at the bottom of the card. And make sure when you're stamping your images, you do stamp some off because of the edge of the card front, because it gives it a better, more cohesive look. It's like designer series paper. When it goes off the edge, it gives it that continuous look. That's one of my big things. I love to do that. So we're going to finish coloring up this flower. Super easy. Let me know if you have tried Ohuhu markers, or if you're interested in trying them. I have been looking at these for several months. Actually, a couple years now. So, all right, we're going to go to our next color combination, which is our chocolate. I'm going to color my stems with that. And I chose E220, BR3, BR2, and E260 for my shadows. The E220 is my highlight, BR3 and BR2 are my midtones, and the E260 are my shadows. And this is not a super dark chocolate color. It's more of a mid-tone or tint of the chocolate. That's what I decided to go with, to tie it in a little bit more, so that it was matched the peach a little bit better than a dark wood. So I went with the tint instead of the actual shadow or the tone. Tint is a color that you add with white to make it lighter, and tone is the actual color, and then shadow is what is added with black or a neutral to make it darker. So that's the difference between those, if you were wondering. So we're going to color up all of our stems. And remember, anywhere a petal overlaps another petal, something overlaps the other object, it's going to be darker. Light's not going to hit the stems as much as it does the flowers. So you got to be aware of that when you're coloring. So we're almost done with that, and I realized right about here is where the stem didn't go all the way through, so I added a little bit more. I just kind of added a little line under that leaf to make it continuous. I thought it didn't, I guess my mask covered it up, or I didn't stamp it in the right place. I don't know. There it goes. So I just wanted a little bit more. You can totally change things up, so don't be afraid of that. So let's go back to the card. We're going to keep coloring in our shadows. And then our midtones. And this doesn't have a lot of real estate, so I don't do a lot of the midtones. Sometimes I skipped the highlight and just put in the other color. And that's where I realized up there that I forgot those leaves and the ones across, that green one that should be green across from it. So we're going to put in, this time I went light to dark. So I'm going to put in I put in the lightest color first, then I put in the dark, and then I'm blending that out with our midtones. And then I'm going to come back with my lightest color and blend that out. I'm coming back to my green for that leaf right there, because Rick forgot it. All right, we're going to move on to our auburn color. And for this color combination, we are going to use EO6, EO80, and E130. And it was EO60 as the highlight, EO80 as the midtone, and E130 as the shadow. And I'm going to color it all in with the lightest color first, and then I'm going to do stippling with the other colors to give it a little textural look. And I'm just stippling, as all you're doing is just kind of touching the tip of the marker. I did add a little bit more into that, shadows, to make it a little darker. But I did stippling through the entire centers of the flowers, besides the little stamens on the outside of it. I just added some of the dark color. Didn't worry about blending because it was super small. Sometimes you don't have to color it all. You can just use one color and fill it in and be done with it, like that. So we're going to do a little stippling there. And again, it's just the tip. The stippling, I'm doing the 3 colors because the lighter colors of the alcohol marker will lighten the darker colors. Now we're going to come in with that same color combination, and I'm going to add some drama to the card because it wasn't popping enough. And I do like a little drama in my cards. So we are going to fill in around our colored images. And with that darkest E130, I started doing the blend, and then I decided just to do the E130 because it was nice, rich, and dark. A nice dark brown or auburn color. It's the darkest auburn. It's like it's real dark brown. So we're just going to go around all of our little images, and it actually makes them pop a little bit more, especially once we start adding the other details, like our highlights and some glitter, because we got to have a little aqua shimmer pen, because a little sparkle, got to have it. Got to have our highlights. All right, right about here, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get a straight line. So I will show you how I'm going to do that in a minute to break this up. So we're going to take and finish up this little section on the edges over here. And this does cover up some of my little mistakes that you don't see on the camera, which was super helpful because there was a couple places I got a little outside the lines because I got a little overzealous with my coloring. So I just went through and hid those, just outlined it. All right, so we're going to finish doing this little section up here on the edge, on the left-hand edge of the card. And I'm just carefully, if you go slow, you can really do this. It doesn't take very long. So don't be afraid to add a little bit more of that dark color in there. It doesn't take as long as you think. This only took me about 18 minutes to do, which is pretty good considering the rest of it. This is where I'm like, oh, how am I going to do that? So I'm going to pull in a T-square, and I'm going to take a pencil, and I'm going to draw a line where in the open spaces of my cards. And I'm not going to be worried. Now, normally, if I'm using a pencil, I wouldn't go right up to the line or over it. But since it's such a dark color, I'm not worried about trapping the ink or the pencil because you're not going to see the graphite underneath it. Lighter colors, you definitely would. You wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to erase your pencil line before or draw it with your lightest color marker or something like that. But since I'm coloring over it with that dark color, it's not a big deal. But it actually made the card pop a little bit more by adding a little bit more of that auburn color in there. It didn't have enough with just doing it in the center of the flowers. So that's why I chose to go ahead and add that section with the chocolate. Or, sorry, auburn. I don't know why I keep saying chocolate. I'm craving chocolate, y'all. Of course, anytime's a good time for chocolate. But I'm just going to go keep outlining and filling in my little areas. And you can see how that made that pop a lot more than just that. Now we're going to take our, what's this pen called? It's the Spectrum Noir shimmer pen, I think is what it's called, is the clear one. So I'm going to color all my flowers with that and my leaves and add a little sparkle. Wink Costello will work too if you have that. This is what I had on hand that is actually still had stuff in it. The other ones, my Wink Costellos are dried up. I've used them as much as I can. So I got these. I found these instead on Amazon. I like them. Wanted to try them also, so we're going to use those. So we're just going to add our shimmer to this. Now, if you're going to, we're going to add some highlights too with our gel pen. So you do want to do your shimmer first and let that dry before you add your gel pen highlights. So that's why went ahead and added this first, because we don't want to take a chance and smear our gel pen. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just adding the rest of our little shimmer here. It took a little bit, and I did decide to go back and do the leaves too. At first I wasn't going to, I was just going to do the flowers, but then I decided the leaves needed a little shimmer love also. All right, so if you're interested in learning coloring markers specifically and or watercolors, I'm going to be teaching 2 classes, one in January and one in February, on my friend Wendy Cranford's Creative Vault. I'm going to be doing a marker coloring class and a watercolor class, one in February, one in January. I think the marker class is going to be first. All right, so we're going to go back to the card for a second. We're going to add our highlights with our gel pen. It's just our jelly roll pen. We're going to add that. All right, so back to Wendy's. She's asked me to do that. I've got to record the video. I do have a link below where you can sign up for the Creative Vault. I think it's $14.99 a month, but as long as you're a member of the Vault, you get all these classes that she offers in there for free. And it's by various people. I know Kelly Taylor has some classes in there. There's some scrapbook classes. There's some 3D classes. I know Wendy's planning on doing a Fun Fold class coming up, but you have to be a member to get access to it. So there's that. It's $14.99 a month, and it's super fun. I've got access to it. I've really enjoyed watching those videos in there, those classes. And you have access for as long as you're a member. So there's all that. You can go back and watch them as many times as you want. So that link is below. You can sign up for that. So now we are finished with our highlights, and we are going to take, this is how I'm going to fix my little boo-boo. I took a fine liner and just kind of made my own little leaf, ended my leaf. I'm going to cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4, I think is what I cut it down. I almost decided to cut it, make that leaf hang off, but then I was like, I can't do that with a guillotine, so I didn't. So we cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4. To put that way I can just add it to a card front and it will be all nice and pretty. We got to add our sentiment. So I'm going to take and put in my sentiment in there, which says holding you in my heart. And I'm stamping this in the pigment ink. You can use Obsidian Black pigment ink from Altenew. You could use Diversifying Clair, which I love. It's what I used. And then to make it stand out a little bit more, I'm going to cover that in some clear Wow embossing powder from Wow Embossing, and I'm going to heat set that to make it nice and pretty. I did stamp it 3 times with the pigment ink, but that does, after heat embossing, it's locked in. I don't have to worry about anything. And there's a look at our project, and here's a look at the finished card. If you like this video, you're probably going to like that video up there on the top, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys. Love you.